Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and today we're back with some more of the Shell Part 1, Inferno. So, last time we left off, really, honestly, nothing at all happened. We just kind of were, it was really just like a filler episode. So, without further ado, let's jump right on back into the action. See if hopefully something happens this episode. I rose to my feet after finishing breakfast and my post-meal coffee.
兄さん、お出かけですか？
ちょっと調べ物をしてくるよ。
では昼食は外で食べてこられますね。夕飯は作って待っておりますので。
ああ、行ってくる。
I think actually the most how do you say? The most important thing that happened in the last episode, I think we got another glimpse of the killer. So there are more victims, there are more bodies. However, we have yet to come across them. So I'm hoping that we get to that sometime soon here. But oh yeah, we're looking into Toko's family history because it turns out that she's not actually a Kuchiki. We're theorizing that she had been basically adopted by the family in the aftermath of the war, when there was like pretty much no accurate registries and stuff, so we're trying to figure that out. I returned to Inokishiro Park after getting a copy of the Kuchiki family register from Mitaka City Hall. Reading it over, I learned that Toko was indeed adopted. However, there was no other information apart from that. While it had been almost a decade since the enactment of the new Family Registration Act, there was still plenty out there who'd yet to reconstruct their family registers, albeit not from a lack of trying. Because of that, Yasatuda, his late wife Chisato, and even Fumiya, none of whom would have normally been included under the new family registry, was listed as well. So I gotta put chapstick on. Alright. I also learned that Chizuru Kichiki had never been married. In other words, she'd raised Toko as a single mother. But why? I wanted to ask Chizuru directly, but I knew it'd probably be a while until I could get in a viable position to do so. First, I had to force her to admit Toko was adopted, but that wasn't something I could just call her out on. So, while it'd be a pain, I just have to wait for an opportune moment for the time being. You know, that is pretty interesting. I mean, obviously, that's probably going to be a big play into the whole Shinzo Mamiya thing, and why he had, like, this painting depicting somebody looking exactly like Toko, if not straight up Toko. I emerged from the park and arrived at Kichijoji Station. There were a lot of students around, probably because it was spring break. I even spotted a few girls from Overgirls Academy. The school forbade them from visiting shopping districts, but the students probably didn't pay those rules much mind. Maybe they dropped their guards now they were on vacation too.
おや、時坂さんではありませんか。
I turned to face that familiar voice.
おお、桂木さんでしたか。
Ah, Shin Katsuragi.
吉祥寺で会うなんて珍しいですね。
ええ、ちょっと気分転換に訪れたんですよ。今は新作の執筆中でしてね。あ、立ち話もなんですからどこかへ行きましょうか。
I think, now, keep in mind, at one point when we were doing the whole deduction bit, when we ended up pinning it on, what's his name? Fucking, the Nishizono, Yu Nishizono's brother. When we ended up pinning on him, I do think at one point I did suspect, Shin Katsuragi. But obviously we had like a single very brief conversation with him, so I wasn't really able to do much there. However, in my mind, he's kind of like the next best suspect. Because, I mean, come on, like, it makes sense why, let me open up my notes. I fucking forget this guy's name. Where are you, my friend? Where are you? Come on. Toko, here we go. Kusaka. So, Kusaka, it makes sense why he would be pinned as, like, the primary suspect. Because obviously, he's a teacher, he has direct contact with these people, and then especially come to find out that he's actually Yui Nishizono's brother, whom he was separated from, and that he's on medications, and he's kind of crazed and spent time at the psycho ward, but then he stopped coming and stopped taking his medications. So it was kind of blaringly obvious. Despite how obvious it was, I still fucking struggled a lot getting surefire evidence against him. But to me, it definitely makes sense that the next most suspicious guy is definitely going to be Katsuragi himself. Because, I mean, the dude wrote the fucking book, right? He wrote the book, yet he's somehow completely unaware that there's been this horrific string of murders surrounding it. He knew Yui Nishizono. I'm pretty sure it was him. Oh, I forget if it was him that was with Yui Nishizono. But again, he met Yui Nishizono. He received therapy at the psychological or pathological institute, just like Kusaka, which is probably how they met. And he also met Yui Nishizono there, and I believe he knew that Yui Nishizono had an abortion. He was like one of the only people who knew that she had an abortion. So, I mean, there's a lot of arguably circumstantial evidence surrounding this guy, but clearly now that he's popped back up, I have a feeling that we're going to get a lot more insight on him. Anyways.
それでしたら近くにいい喫茶店がありますよ。
The fact that he was up for a talk with me meant there must have been something he'd been dying to ask. Probably concerning the Kusaka case if I had to guess.
ではそこへ行きましょうか。車も運転できないし、遠出するわけにもいきませんからね。
Loser.
ええ、こちらです。
いらっしゃいませ。あら、時坂くん。お客さん連れとは珍しいわね。
たまにはそういうこともあるさ。奥借りるぞ。
Katsuragi and I headed over to the furthest table from the entrance. Not that our talk was confidential or anything. I just didn't want people listening in on us discussing a murder case.
静かで落ち着いたお店ですね。
単に客が少ないだけですよ。
I joked around as I called Hatsune over.
初音くん、コーヒーと。
僕は紅茶お願いします。
はい、かしこまりました。
Katsuragi finally got down to business after Hatsune left us with a bow.
それで事件の方はどうなりましたか？
ええ、おかげさまで解決しましたよ。
それはよかった。お疲れ様です。
桂木さんの作品、ネアニスの卵でしたか。
That was probably the matter Katsuragi had wanted to discuss.
そうですか。僕はそのようなつもりであれを書いたわけではないのですが。
あなたの本が犯罪のきっかけになったわけではありませんよ。ただ、口差がない新聞や週刊誌はそう書き立てるかもしれませんが。
それを恐れていては僕らは何も書くことができなくなりますよ。
Katsuragi allowed himself a little chuckle at that.
お待たせしました。どうぞ。
Hatsune. Hatsune, you precious angel. Hatsune brought us our coffee and tea.
ありがとう、初音くん。
Right when I turned away to thank her, I saw an Obergirls Academy student at the entrance. Hey, isn't that...
あ、先生がおると。
Great. Should have known she'd spot me.
珍しいな、ここで会うなんて。
He really does not want to talk to her right now.
ゆかりんと待ち合わせしてるんだよ。こちらの方は？
Tojiko pointed to Katsuragi.
桂木慎と言います。
あの小説家の？
Her jaw practically hit the floor.
ああ、こいつも小説を書くんですよ。よそ宮とじこと言って。
つづりこだってば。
ご同輩でしたか。まだ学生さんなのに素晴らしいことです。
いえ、私なんてまだまだで。
Tojiko? Nervous? What, are pigs gonna fly next?
これからも頑張ってくださいね。
Tojiko bowed so quickly that I'd fear she'd slam her head on the table.
それでは僕はこれで。あ、ここの台は僕が持ちますよ。
はいえ、そこまでしていただかなくても。
Yet, despite my efforts, Katsuragi simply shook his head, grabbed the check, and took off. I watched as he departed the cafe.
なんで先生が桂木先生とお知り合いなの？
Tojiko took Katsuragi's seat and wasted no time grilling me.
仕事だよ。例の件で会いに行ったんだ。お前こそ桂木慎のことは知っていたんだな。
うん。本は読んでないけど、名前はよく聞いていたからね。お前も桂木先生くらい売れてくれれば助かるのにってよく編集さんが言ってるもの。
その編集さんも大変だな。
Must be
お
rough
前み
having
たい
to
なの
work
を
with
担
you.
当して。
なんでさ。仲がよろしいですね、二人とも。
I turned to find Yukari standing behind me.
ゆかりん。待たせてしまったようですね、すずり子。別に兄さんの相手などしていなくてもよかったのに。先生じゃなくて、今ここに桂木慎がいたんよ。桂木慎？
Yukari blinked in confusion.
小説家だよ。
サインもらっておけばよかった
She looks so confused.
そのうち頼んでおいてやるよ。
If we ever crossed paths again, anyway.
の。先生、本当？それでは話もまとまったところで行きましょうか。うん、じゃあね先生。
おう、二人とも気をつけてな。
Yukari and Tojiko left the cafe. Kyoko came over the counter just as I was about to take a sip of my lukewarm coffee.
おかわりいる？
ああ、そうだな。もらおうか。
I handed her an empty cup, which she promptly filled with coffee. Real quick, I want to interject. Does anybody else find it awfully fucking convenient that this recluse, who was so not willing to speak with us before, a guy who doesn't know how to drive, happened to find his way out here, all the way over to us, which, mind you, if I remember correctly, is kind of out of the fucking way, and happens to run into us, and happens to seemingly have a very specific thing that he wants to talk about with us, right? Like, and that thing that he wants to talk about with us happens to be this murder case. Now, of course, it's like, okay, yeah, but it is his book, and of course he's going to be interested in it, and he's an author, yada, yada, yada. Again, circumstantial, but depending on how you look at it, that could be a little bit suspicious. So I'm just gonna throw that out there and leave that on the table for you to chew on for a second.
ねえ時坂くん、そこの壁に空きがあるでしょ？絵を飾りたいんだけれど、どんな絵がいいかしら？
Kyoko pointed at the spot in question.
ねえ。間宮心臓の絵なんかどうだ？
I named the first artist that came to mind.
間宮心臓？ダメダメ、すごく高いのよ。小さいの1枚でも100万円以上するんだから。
Okay, we're searching this up. How much is a million yen? And this is 1950s. So let's see. How much is 1 million yen in the 1950s? Oop, 1950s to USD now. Let's see this. So, 1 million. So 1 million yen in 1956, which I think that's actually pretty accurate to where we're at now. Here we go. Oh yeah, exactly, 1956. Wow, convenient. So in 1956, a million yen would equate today to 6.5 million yen. Okay, so we got to do 6.5 million yen to USD, which is $43,000. That's now granted, the difference between $43,000 and 6.5 million yen. Oh man, the Japanese economy sure did take a fucking hit, didn't it?
そんなにするのか。参ったな。
That was more than 10 years worth of salary back when I was on the force.
確かに間宮心臓の絵は綺麗だから飾ってはみたいんだけれどね。
そういや、今上野で個展が開かれているから値段とかそういうのを聞いてきてやろうか。
でもそんなにお金ないわよ。
話を聞くだけならタダだよ。俺ももう一度あの個展には行こうと思っていたからな。
I gulped down the last of my coffee and got up.
ま、からかいがてら聞いてくるよ。
I took the train from Kichijoji to Ueno. Magnificent cherry blossoms adorned Ueno Park all the way through to the art museum at the end. It seemed they were still running the Shinzo Mamiya exhibit. probably run into Stella. The museum was practically deserted. Not surprising considering the exhibit had been running for over 2 weeks. Most interested parties had likely long since come and gone. Stella was all but dozing off in a chair in the corner of the museum.
Yeah, Stella.
The woman in question glanced quizzically up at me.
誰？
多分そういう反応が返ってくるだろうと思っていたよ。
あ、レイジ？
Whoa, she actually remembered me.
ちょうどよかった。君に間宮心臓について聞きたかったんだよ。
心臓、今いない。
いや、それは分かっているから。彼の生い立ちやそういうのは知らないのかな。
うん。
Yeah, guess that's too much to expect from an art museum employee.
じゃあ絵の話をしよう。間宮氏の絵で一番安いのはどれかな。
5円のものがこちらにありま
5
す。
yen? Stella suddenly shifted into fluent mode. I must have touched upon something work-related.
5円？そんなに安いのもあるのかい？
ええ、ポストカードですけれど。
Stella pointed to a row of postcards on the desk by the entrance.
まあ、はがきは5円だよな。
Souvenir items. That thing would look pathetic hung on a wall.
8枚組のセットもありますよ。
With that, Stella showed me a collection of postcard versions of the exhibit
お
paintings.
や、空の少女がないようだけれど。
空の少女については間宮心臓の許可が下りなかったそうです。
おお、こだわりなのかな。
Was he too proud to let it be reproduced, maybe? That made sense, since even I couldn't deny that painting had some mystifying allure to it. Though maybe that was just because it looked so much like her.
40円です。
Stella held out her hands, completely misinterpreting my interest.
まあいいか。
They make a decent souvenir for Kyoko, if nothing else. Now that is interesting, because... Oh, here we go. Here it is again. I stood before a girl in the shell. Do I have to censor this? I don't think I censored it before. God, I hope I don't have to. The more I stared at her, the more it looked like Toko. Not just because of the aura exuded by the painting itself, but also the features of the girl. However, Stella had said they'd been painted around the end of the war. Thus, there was no way Toko Kuchiki could have been its model. And now that I knew she was adopted, finding said model seemed like a viable lead related to Toko's request. That's what I was kind of thinking, right? Like, probably her mother or something, right? Which would actually be very in line with the story, because the Egg of Nianis is supposedly all about trying to, like, resurrect one's mother, right? Which is obviously what then inspired Kusaka to try and resurrect his sister. So that would fall perfectly in line. It wouldn't be implausible for her to turn out to be none other than Toko's biological mother.
この絵がお気に召しましたかな。
Surprised, I turned toward the source of the voice to find a diminutive old man loitering by his
君
lonesome.
にはこの絵がどう見えているのでしょうかね。
どうとは？
I cocked my head, confused by the bizarre man's question.
観測者によって見るところは全く違うのですよ。画材に価値を見出すもの、モチーフに価値を見出すもの、値段にのみ価値を見出すもの。
そうですね。この少女でしょうか。この細やかさはまるで生きているかのようだ。
It was like Toko was right there in front of me, sealed within the canvas.
それもまた一つの捉え方でしょうな。見たものの認
I'm
識
gonna
が
take
全
a
て
wild
です
guess and say this is probably Shinzo Mamiya.
そこに作者の意思は介在せず、作者が何を表現しようとしていたのかということは、むしろ邪魔でしかありません。
The old man continued expositing his philosophy.
それでも、当時の彼は何を思ってこの絵を描いたのでしょうか。なぜこんな歪んだ絵を描いてしまったのだろうね。
Twisted. I took another look at Girl in the Shell. Did that mean there were people out there who interpreted it in that manner? More importantly, however, something else about the old man's comment had piqued my curiosity.
すみません。おや？
I turned around, but the man was gone. Could he have been none other than Shinzo Mamiya himself? He talked like it had nothing to do with him, but it makes sense to interpret his musings as him reflecting back on when he painted it. A moment later, I saw Stella coming over.
なあステラ、今そこにいたご老人は
はい。
Stella cocked her head.
間宮心臓が今いなかったか？
心臓、顔を知らない。人嫌いだから誰にも会わない。
Maybe I should look for that old man then.
ちょっとそのあたりを見回ることにするよ。
レイジ、
Stella stopped me just as I was about to break into a dash.
なんだい？
館内は走らないでください。他のお客様のご迷惑になりますので。
わかったよ。
I searched all the way from the museum to Ueno Station, but ultimately found neither hide nor hair of the old man.
そう。
Got some jets on him. However, cursing wasn't going to solve anything. Obviously there's a connection between this painting in Shinzo Mamiya, the Egg of Nianis, and these murders, right? It makes me wonder, like, surely Shin Katsuragi must have seen this painting and then been inspired to create the story of the Egg of Nianis. Maybe it's possible that the Egg of Nianis maybe was his interpretation of Girl and Shell, which then obviously spurred on all these murders. So, interesting things to think about. I feel like there's definitely, like, the pieces are not all of them are there, but I feel like we are having some pretty important pieces laid out in front of us. Finding out where Shinzo Mamiya lived would probably be the next best step, though I had no idea how I was going to do that. Maybe I could ask Uezomi. The police probably had the resources to look into that, so long as it had something to do with a serious case anyway. Unfortunately, I doubted they'd act on anything as trifling as this. Oh? I saw Toko Mizuhara. She was squaring off with someone, yelling louder than I'd ever heard her before. Is that her mother? Unfortunately, I was too far away to make out their conversation. Toko dialed down her voice considerably, and yet I could tell from the angular lines sculpting her face that they were still arguing. And with that final heated outburst, Toko stormed off toward the station. Oh shit, okay, well, save! Okay, come on. Chase her down or stay out of it? Huh. On one hand, it's like I think ultimately what I'll do is chase her down. I would only say stay out of it because obviously she's heated right now. The last person she would want to talk to is me. Although granted, we did make that offer last time we saw her, so I think we are going to chase her down. I shot Toko's mother a glance, but quickly decided to go after the girl herself. Yeah, I figured if we had left it alone, I imagine we might have ended up talking to the mother. Probably would have gotten more information that way, but we'll see what it leads to. It didn't take me long to catch up with her.
Sensei?
Toko turned around and stared at me with astonishment, but soon enough her countenance warped into a stern glare.
何の用ですか?
言い争っているのを見てしまったからね。さっきのお母さんだろ？
あなたには関係ないじゃないですか。
Toko turned away from me.
そうだね。確かに関係ない。でも黙って見過ごすわけにもいかないだろう。
別に放っておいてください。親子の問題ですから。
Yeah, I figured we probably weren't going to get much
それでは失礼し
information
ます。
out of her this way. She scowled one last time before taking off. Well, that went poorly. Maybe I would have had better luck with her mother. I swerved back in the direction of the museum, but Toko's mother was nowhere to be found. I see. I'm gonna load it. This is purely for my own selfish sake. Alright, I'll stay out of it. This was a family matter, one I had no business sticking my nose into. The older woman sadly watched Toko walk away, then slumped her shoulders before entering the museum. Okay, well. That meant nothing. I guess. I figured maybe it would have been like we would have ended up talking to her somehow, but clearly that's not the case.
いや、
あの
そう。
別
Okay. I want to go back and do this just because I think it'd be nice to just make it known that we did interact with her at least, in case she ever wants to talk again. But yeah. Okay. Unsurprisingly, Toko Mizuhara has some fucking familial issues. Who saw that coming, right? I returned to my office in Shinjuku and picked up the phone. I had to ask Uzomi if he could look into where Shinzo Mamiya lived. Of course, whether he'd actually do it is still up in the air. Regardless, I dialed the MPD's very own CID and asked for Uzomi.
おお、レイジか。どうした？
ちょっと野暮用を頼みたくてな。
I mulled over the postcards I'd bought from the museum as I began my whole spiel.
間宮心臓という画家の家に行きたいんだ。住所を調べてくれないか。
マミヤ。何か事件でもあったのか？
いや、そういうわけじゃないんだが。
事件でもねえのに、おいそれと教えられるわけがないだろうが。
Yeah, figured.
いやな。
Hey,
そ
fair
の
enough.
画家に会ってみたいんだとよ。京子のやつが。
This fucking guy.
何？
Hook, line, and sinker.
京子が？いや、それでも一般人に教えるわけには。
教えてもらえれば京子は喜ぶだろうな。
Oh, this is so fucking illegal. I love
って
it.
な。
気持ち悪い声色作るんじゃねえ。さく。今回だけだからな。
Sorry, man. That was total BS.
間宮心臓の自宅か。法屋だな。
Uzomi wasted no time digging up the answer.
ほうや？大場女学院の近くか。
Ah.
いや、あそこは田無の方に出っ張ったところにあるだろう。間宮邸は池袋線の法屋駅よりも北にある。詳しい住所は。
I wrote down the address Uzomi gave me.
ありがとうよ。まあそのうち京子にも伝えておくわ。
お、よろしく頼むぞ。
Poor Uzomi. Love struck as ever. I went to Ikebukuro and took the Seibu line to Hoya Station. Afterward, I navigated the streets until I found what seemed to be the place. It was located amidst a grove of trees near an up-and-coming residential district. A few steps was all it took to make me think I'd gotten lost in some dense jungle. This place was a forest. No, more like a sea of trees. Though I knew I was still in the city, my sense of direction started to malfunction. The paths weren't even paved, and the weeds were so dense that it was impossible to make out any tire tracks. Eventually, though, my meandering led me to a dilapidated manor, pregnant with the stench of rotten wood. Supposedly, Shinzo Mamiya lived here, yet it felt like the place was an ancient ruin that had been deserted for centuries. Regardless, I approached the door and knocked on it to be safe.
反応なしか。
Huh. Definitely a place I can imagine an artist like Shinzo Mamiya living. But we'll see, I guess. I didn't think Uzomi had fed me a false address, though. Whatever the case, Shinzo Mamiya clearly wasn't here. Now what? Alright, well I think we know what I'm gonna do. Let's do this. Okay. So, real quick, I'm gonna look around a little bit more. But, I mean, it's possible that obviously Shinzo Mamiya is just a, like, fake name. I mean, that's not uncommon for artists and authors to use false names, right? It could be possible, and this is me really going on a rant. Mamiya's dead, you know, yada yada yada, maybe somebody's acting in his place, you know, that kind of thing. That's probably not the case, but if we're getting a little bit fantastical about it, then maybe it's possible. Anyways, let's look a little bit more. I decided to explore a little more. The first order of business was inspecting the house more closely. It turned out that all the windows are boarded up from the inside. No wonder it looked so dark. I couldn't find even a single crack to peer through. The guy was either methodical or delusional. There were no signs that the front porch had been cleaned either. However, there were footprints here and there. They clearly belonged to multiple people, though I couldn't tell exactly how many sets there were. Most of them came from individuals with smaller feet than me, at least. Huh. Smaller feet, women, children, young women. It seemed the place wasn't so abandoned after all. I turned the knob carefully so as not to make a sound, but the door was locked. Was anyone actually home? Stella did say Shinzo Mamiya wasn't a people person. In that case, maybe he was just ignoring me. Eventually, I realized I just have to give this another shot some other time. The city was dyed vermilion by the time I returned to Kichijoji on the bus. Okay, where to? Well, let's go to Moonworld to drop off those postcards.
あ、時坂さん、いらっしゃいませ。
Hatsune cheerfully greeted my arrival.
やあ、初音くん。
昨日はどうもありがとうございました。
昨日
Perplexed, I tried to recall what had happened the prior day.
昨日私が眠ってしまっていた時にコートをかけてくださいましたよね。
あは、そのことか。
Personally, I didn't think it merited all that much gratitude.
それでこれお礼です。
Hatsune presented me with a tiny package. Her cheeks flushed.
これは
Hey, be careful now. Reiji has a thing for high school girls, alright? Now think about it, right? He was very reluctant to fuck, well, what's her name? The morgue lady. Let me find out her name. Let's see, where is she? To fuck Natsume. He was very, very not into that. But when it's a high school girl, he's all for it, man. Oh, I need to fuck her to make her, think that she's not a monster. Oh, come on. Like, this guy.
クッキーですけど。
自分で作ったのかい
That was the impression I got after seeing the somewhat rumpled package.
はい。
Sure, he didn't mix up sugar. We'll take him. We're not going to be mean to Hatsune. Come
あ
on.
りがとう、初音くん。
A
ありが
lot
た
of
くいただくとするよ。
decisions this fucking episode. Jesus Christ.
今コーヒーお入れしますね。
Hatsune darted off to the counter. I plopped down on the stool. Kyoko was staring at me, a reproachful look on her face for some reason.
なんだよ。
なんだか初音ちゃんを時坂くんに取られちゃった気分。
なんだそりゃ。
クッキーの作り方を教えたのは私なのよ。それなのに味見してあげようと思ったら
Reiji just has
最
a
初に時坂さん
way
に
of
食べてもらい
attracting
たいんです
underage girls, huh?
ってね。
I opened the package. The cookies were lumpy and misshapen, making it evident that this was baby's first cooking attempt.
もう開けちゃったんですか？
まだ食べていないから安心していいよ。じゃあ、コーヒーと一緒にいただこうか。
はい。どうぞ。
Dozo. Hatsune watched with bated breath. Honestly, I was the nervous one here. I grabbed a cookie and took a bite.
どうですか？
悪くないよ。形は歪んでいるけれど、味は申し分ない。
本当ですか？よかった。
Hatsune smiled in relief.
私ももらおうかな。初めてにしては上出来よ。
ありがとうございます。
お礼を言うのはこっちだよ。わざわざ作ってくれてありがとう、初音くん。
I sipped my coffee. It was a little on the weak side, but that was how I liked it best. Alright. We can go to Shinjuku Station, Inokashira, Takeshiro. We don't really have a reason to go to Takeshiro. Let's go to the park. I arrived at Inokashira Park.
あれは
Toko was by the pond. It appeared she was sketching something.
珍しいこともあるもんだな。よう、トコ。
I approached the pair over by the bench.
やあ、時坂先生。
Toko waved her pencil at me.
先生。
Tojiko got off the bench.
何をしているんだ
That is a very rare pairing. You do not see Tojiko and Toko together at all very often.
人物画が描きたくなってね。ちょうど通りがかったよそ宮さんを捕まえたんだ。
ほう、トジコがモデルね。
何さ、悪い？
いや、別に悪いとは言ってないぞ。
だってさ、ゆかりんは夕飯の支度があるからって帰っちゃうし。あまり動かないでもらえるかな、とじこくん。 ほら座って。
Now we got Toko calling her Tojiko.
うんって今さトジコって言わなかった？気のせいだよ。
Toko resumed drawing as if nothing had happened.
なんか納得いかない。
Yes, spread the word of Tojiko.
いい名前じゃないか。時坂先生が名付けたんだろ。
Toko grinned.
よくなかとよ。ああもうこうなったら朽木さんにもなんか変なあだ名つけるんだから。それは楽しみだな。どんなのをつけてくれるんだい？朽木トーコだから冬っちだ。
冬っちね。
変じゃないよね。なかなかいいんじゃないかな。案外好評だったりするのがなぜか納得いかない。
Tojiko screamed and nearly tore her hair out.
ほら続きを書くから顔を上げてくれたまえ。
Tojiko groaned but still complied. I should probably get going. Won't want to get in the way.
それじゃあ俺はこれで。
あれもう行くのかい？ゆっくりしていけばいいのに。
Toko continued drawing as she snuck a peek at me out of the corner of her eye.
せっかく友達同士で一緒にいるのに邪魔しては悪いだろう。
そんなことはないけど私が邪魔者だと思ってたから。どうしてだい？だってさ冬っちと先生って仲がいいでしょ。さあどうだろうね。
Now, Tojiko. Don't, don't go telling people that, alright? Toko didn't take the bait.
先生はどう思ってるの？
どうもこうも。俺は一応教師だぞ。
ふーん。トジコくん動かないで。
Tojiko winced.
じゃあ俺はこれで。またな。
あ、また今度。
Sorry, Tojiko, but you're never gonna win with Toko, man. It's impossible.
なんかごまかされた気がする。動いてはダメだよ、トジコくん。またトジコって呼んでるし。
I left, pretending not to hear those final words.
なあゆかり。
A question came to mind as Yukari was relaxing in the living room after dinner.
何ですか、兄さん。
間宮心臓について何か知っていることはないか？
He'd been on my mind since this afternoon. I wasn't getting anywhere on my own, so I figured my artistically inclined sister was a good place to start as any.
間宮心臓ですか。
Yukari stroked his chin as she mulled over her thoughts. I arranged the postcards I bought from the museum atop the table. The brushwork must have been exquisite, but unfortunately I lacked the eyes for such aesthetics.
そうですね。私も詳しいことはわかりません。ですが、教頭先生ならば何か知っているかもしれませんね。
佐伯教頭が？ああ、確か美術部の顧問でもあったか。
And he's an old head, so if anybody's gonna know stuff about an artist that's supposedly been around as long as Mamiya has, it's probably gonna be Saiki.
ええ、それに教頭先生は昔絵描きでもあったらしいですから、もしかしたら間宮心臓とも交流があったかもしれません。
何かそういった話をしていたことはあるか？
いえ、聞いたことはありませんね。
そうか。
Sounded like it'd be worth paying him a visit. Though maybe it'd be prudent to give Mamiya Manor another look-see first. March 31st.
兄さん、朝ごはんができましたよ。
That was the first thing I heard upon waking up.
今何時だ
8時を過ぎていますよ。今日は天気もいいし、お布団を干したいので早く起きてください。
わかったよ。
I got dressed and lumbered into the living room, resisting the urge to grumble about how I was still tired. The air was alive with the aroma of mouth-watering miso soup from the kitchen. That was all it took to obliterate all traces of slumber from my mind. Pathetic, I know.
今準備しますね。
Yukari raced back to the kitchen. I took out a cigarette and lit it.
客か？
Odd. No one ever visited this early. I opened the door to find a modern-day giant on my doorstep.
なんだよ、魚住か。
なんだとはなんだ。失礼なやつだな。
失礼はお前だ。これから飯を食おうっていうのにのこのこ来やがって。
兄さん、そういう言い方はないと思いますよ。
Yukari came over to join the fun.
おう、ゆかりちゃん。おはようさん。
おはようございます、大住さん。よろしければ朝食もご一緒にいかがですか？
それじゃ、せっかくだからいただくとするか。
少しは遠慮しろよ。
I couldn't recall the last time I'd had a meal this surreal.
うまいな。朝飯を抜いてきてよかった。
で、お前は何をしにわざわざ来たんだ？
あまりこの場では話したくない内容だぞ。
I have a feeling they found another body.
なるほど。
Yeah, murder wasn't exactly the most appetizing conversation fodder.
前のとは関係ないんだろ
う。ああ、当然だろ。
That figured, what with Kusaka being behind bars and all.
またバラバラだがな。
Uzomi whispered that to me as he cut up a slice of fish.
嫌な世の中だな。
何のお話ですか？
お前は聞かない方がいい話だよ。
I didn't want this meal Yukari slaved over going to waste by ruining everyone's appetite after all.
まあそうだな。まだ何も分かっちゃいない話だ。
そうですか。お気をつけてくださいね。
お。
For some reason, Uzomi and I ended up leaving the house together.
なんだレイジ。お前どこか行くのか？
ああ、少々早いが、ちょっと調べたいことがあってな。
It was possible Shinzo Mamiya may still be home in the morning after all.
さっきの件な。草カノとは無関係だろうが、よく似ている。
I'm guessing, well, first off, obviously we haven't seen it yet, but depending on what we see, I imagine it'll probably play out something along the lines of, like, oh hey, here's this scarily resembling, you know, body setup and everything. But it's probably just a copycat killer, right? Because the difference here, I think, well, first off, we actually do have a couple questions. One question is, again, I think at this point it's all but confirmed that there is another killer out there. But it's like, okay, so these two killers, include, you know, Kusaka and whoever else, presumably were working together. If they were working together, it's just a question of, were they working, like, was this an effort where it's like, you know, Kusaka is being told, hey, go after this girl, go after that girl. So basically, was the fact that Kusaka went after girls who had got an abortion and stuff and were a part of this Black Madonna group, was that something that was a part of Kusaka's MO? Or was that part of this other killer's MO? Right? So, because it's very possible that Kusaka was just being dragged along with with what the other killer was doing. And the other killer would have promised him, like, oh yeah, you can do this and that, and bring back your sister. And I guess presumably the other killer is doing it for their mother, right? Because that's been a big theme so far, is, oh, I need to collect body parts to resurrect my mother. I mean, hell, that's what the game started off with. So it'll be interesting to see these other killings that I assume we're about to see, and see how the motivations behind it are different, because I think that would probably shed some light on just in general, like, hey, who killed these girls, right? Who killed them? Why did they kill them? What was the motivation behind them? Behind the murders? Because again, some of the murders that we came across in the case that led to Kusaka, we had like detailed descriptions of, like, we had scenes where we saw them get killed. So that should be pretty interesting, because again, it's very possible that they were working together, but they both knew how to kill. They were both learning the medical, like they were both, like, because again, we found a bunch of medical books inside Kusaka's house. I think we did, at least, if I remember correctly. So we'll see. I'm probably not putting that into the best of words, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. Uzomi abruptly broached the topic.
似ている？
まだ身元も分かっちゃいないが、おそらく若い女だ。また何かあったら頼むかもしれん。
そうか。それまでには暇を作っておくことにするよ。
ああ、頼む。
And with that, Uzomi departed in the direction of the station. So we've got another one on our hands, huh? Doesn't sound like Uzomi has much to go on, though. There are far too many blanks at the moment to say anything for sure, it seemed. For now, the least I could do is find a way to warn Yukari and Toko without alarming them. Good on him. That'd be the first thing I'm doing, man. You know, I mean, in this case, he's warning his sister and his underage high school lover, but you get my drift. I took the bus to Hoya and ventured over to Shinzo Mamiya's manor. My ears rang from the same deafening silence as the day before. I crouched down at the doorway and examined the footprints, but none of them seemed recent. Apparently, nothing had changed since my prior visit. Maybe the house really was unoccupied. Shinzo Mamiya could have simply left this place unoccupied on paper, only to actually reside in a local hotel or something. Even if he wasn't, I couldn't imagine he'd be capable of living here. Whatever the case, further investigation into this recluse artist's whereabouts were looking quite tricky. It would have been nice if I could have gotten the police's help, but that wouldn't be happening without a very good reason.
靴が泥だらけだ。
Oh.
こんなところに家を作るなっての、まったく。
Wait, I know that voice. I promptly hid behind the house.
ああ、もう
I knew it.
邪魔。なんでこんな季節なのにこんなに草が生い茂ってるんだよ。
And who should show up bitching and moaning but none other than Yorotsuki Mori.
いくら偏屈なじいさんだからって呼び出せばいいじゃないかったく。
Yorotsuki walked up to the front door and knocked.
もしもーし、間宮さん、無担当の森ですけど。
He waited for a while but got no answer whatsoever.
いないんすか？ああ、もうこないだ変な探偵に絡まれてからこっち全然仕事がうまくいかないんだよな。
Hey, we're right here, you know.
ったく。
変な探偵で悪かったな。
I took that as my cue to emerge from my hiding spot.
時坂さん？
Yorotsuki was so startled that he almost fell flat on his ass.
なぜここにいるんだ？
それはこっちのセリフっすよ。俺は雑誌取材で来たんすよ。時坂さんはなんでここに？
ほう、取材か。
I couldn't have asked for better timing.
なんすか？
どうやらここに間宮新蔵氏はいないようなんだ。よろつき君、君はすぐに雑誌社へ連絡して間宮氏の居場所を調べてもらうんだ。
いや、それは確かにしなきゃいけないことっすけど、なんで時坂さんに言われないといけないんすか？
俺も探しているからさ。
そうっすか。じゃあ今から聞きに行きますか？
今から？
ここまで車で来たっすからね。編集部まですぐっすよ。
ほう、そうだな。できることならば早い方がいい。
じゃあ行きましょうか。
I followed Yorotsuki back into the woods. Nice leads, baby, leads. Yorotsuki and I made a pit stop in the park after paying his editing department a visit in Renault. Oh, in his Renault.
ついてないっすよね。
It almost looked like Yorotsuki had been told his favorite restaurant had closed. His bosses had called off the interview once he'd told them Shinzo Mamiya wasn't home.
他の作家さんの取材だったら意味ないんすよね。
まあ、そう気を落とすなよ。
俺はいいんすよ。時坂さんのお役に立てなかったことが。
I was crying.
それこそ気にしない方がいいぞ。俺は君に随分と迷惑をかけてしまったからね。
Especially considering I did once toy with the idea that he killed Yui Nushizono after all.
いえ、いいんすよ。俺もいろいろといい経験になりました。
Yorotsuki's face grew grim.
時坂さん。
なんだい？
あの時、 俺一つだけ嘘をついていたんです。
嘘？
はい。俺やっぱり彼女のこと好きだったんだと思います。
I nearly didn't catch that.
今だから言えることなのかもしれません。でもそれでも俺が何か気づいてやれていたんだったらあんなことにはならなかったんじゃないかって。
I silently listened to his monologue.
一緒にいた時間は短かったからあまり彼女のことを知ることはできなかったけれど、それでも笑うのが苦手なこととか教えてくれたし。
Hirotsuki hung his head.
後になって家庭のことを聞いて彼女がうまく笑えなかった理由も分かったような気がするんです。
そうか。
I heard a sniffle from Hirotsuki, and so I simply stood there in silence, waiting for him to calm down. Everyone grieves when they lose loved ones, especially those they were smitten over. I myself was in the same boat once upon a
あ
time.
まり自分を責めてはいけないよ。君に責任はないのだから。
ですが
そうしないと前に進めなくなってしまう。
You'll never move on if you don't. But you may find a high school girl that you want to smash. I didn't want him to end up going down the same thorny road that ensnared me 6 long years back. It was with that thought that I took the photo of Yui Nishizono out of my notebook.
君が撮った写真だ。見てごらん。ほら、彼女はこんなにいい表情で笑ってるじゃないか。
Hirotsuki accepted the photo from me. Then he simply stared at Yui in silence.
少なくとも君といた時は笑えていたんじゃないかな。
そうですよね。
Hirotsuki nodded, eyes still glued to the photo. Man, this game just has a whole thing about adults going after high schoolers, man. I mean, hell, we got Reiji, we got fucking this guy now. We have fucking what was her name? We have Nene. We haven't talked to Nene in fucking forever, but we had her. Jeez. I said farewell to Yotsuki and trotted over to Kichijoji Station. Where to? Let's see. Let's go to Obergirls because we gotta go there to ask Sayaki about Shinzo. I arrived at Obergirls Academy. Several students were around, probably helping to decorate for Easter. The academy was modestly decked out here and there. I made my way inside, careful not to distract anyone. There were students in the hallways as well. They were setting down desks and chairs right out in the open. I felt odd seeing the students with some pep in their steps for a change. They must have been thrilled about the chance to cut loose. Speak of the fucking devil! Eventually, I came across Nene in the corner of a hallway.
どうも、赤崎先生。今日もお仕事ですか？
学生が来ているから私もいないとならないのよ。何かあったら大変だから。
なるほど。忙しいようですね。
そうね。でもこれも仕事ですから。
赤崎先生はなぜ養護教諭になられたのですか？
It occurred to me that I never asked before.
あら、私のことに興味があるの
Yes, I am actually.
ええ、まあ。
まあいいわ。私は戦争が終わってすぐに医大に入ったの。最初は医師を目指していたんだけど。
何かあったのですか？
養護教諭の方が私に合っていると気づいたのよ。
Nene smiled, a hint of nostalgic reverie on her face.
学生時代の同級生で医師になった人にも聞いたけど、大きな病院だといろいろと大変らしいから。
俺の知り合いの医者は楽そうでしたけれどね。
Though she was in a galaxy of her own.
とまあ、そういうわけよ。それじゃ、私はこれで。
ええ、わざわざすみませんでした。
いいのよ。どうせ何かが起こるまでは暇なのだから。それじゃ。
Nene strutted down the hallway after concluding our conversation, eventually passing out of my line of sight. Oh, okay. I thought that was going to produce some more important, a more important event. I was wrong. I always like to hit Inokashita Park, but Tokyo Metropolitan Art Museum, I'm tempted to go back there. I would only go back there because it's like the potential of running into Shinzo Mamiya, or hell, even Toko again. But, let me see real quick, just in case. I think, let's just check out what would happen if we go here. I went to visit the art museum in Ueno. The plan was to talk to Stella, but
Oh yeah?
the museum was closed. Were they not open to visitors today?
仕方ないな。
Time they'd have somewhere else. Oh, okay. So that was a waste of time. Awesome. Inokashita Park we come. I returned to Inokashita Park. It seemed Yurotsuki had already left. His Renault was no longer in its parking spot. Maybe a walk will do me some good. And just as I was circling the
お
pond,
や
I saw Toko sitting at the base of a tree. A sketchbook was right next to her, so the natural conclusion was that she'd been drawing.
やあ、絵を描いていたのかい？
時坂さん、
Oh, that's a very unusual reaction. Toko glanced at me in surprise, only to awkwardly look away just as quickly.
どうしたんだ？
なんでもないよ。
She then placed her sketchbook on her lap and frowned slightly.
トコ。
Her knee was scraped and trickling a thin stream of blood. She tried to hide it with her sketchbook, but there was no fooling my eyes.
どこを見てるんだい？スケベだね。
バカ。転んだのか？
だから、なんでもないと言ったろ。
Toko pouted, sounding a little irritated for once.
貧血か？
Toko fumbled over her words. It seemed I'd hit the nail on the head. Closer inspection revealed her face was white as a sheet.
病院に行った方がいいんじゃないのか？
大丈夫。いつものことだから。
Toko opened her sketchbook. There was an illustration of trees on the page she flipped to. It seemed she'd be sketching the cherry trees on the opposite shore.
見ていて楽しい？
Toko asked as she continued drawing.
楽しいというか、落ち着くな。今日は天気もいいから。
そう。
This anemia thing as well is kind of interesting. I mean, it's not like it's a crazy thing, but it's just interesting that Toko, who is arguably like a primary character in this game/series, has anemia. Like, I mean, it's one of those things where I can't help but feel that it's going to be important in some way, shape, or form. I sat next to Toko. For a while, I simply lingered there, watching the setting spring sun alongside her face. I was dragging on a cigarette in my room after enjoying a nice hot dinner and bath. My mind raced back through the day's events. Everyone had their weaknesses, but we all went about our lives while hiding them. The only difference was how we chose to do it. Some soaked their words in lies, others acted tougher than they really were, and yet others pretended to be cheerful. But in that case, how did I go about hiding my own? By forgetting, maybe. I felt I could keep going on, albeit just barely by striking my weak side from my memories, though it was really hard to get back into that mindset as soon as I did remember the past. Maybe there was already no going back from the moment my mind drifted down this train of thought. I glanced out the window. The Yoshino cherries in the yard were blooming. Spring already, huh? And so I prayed that my days would know peace for as long as possible. Well, that's an event flag right there that you just threw up, buddy. Oh, we're finally in April. It's about goddamn time. I strolled down sidewalks dyed in the florid hues of cherry blossoms with Yukari.
それにしても、なぜ俺まで付き合わされるんだ？
兄さんは手伝ってくれたじゃありませんか。
Yukari said that with a grin.
せっかくの復活祭なのですから、楽しまなくては損ですよ。
復活祭だって、結局のところ何をするんだ？
I knew the basic traditions, but not much concerning what was involved.
お祈りですよ。それとイースターエッグですね。
ああ、 この間作っていたな。
あの卵を隠してそれを見つけ出すんです。本当は子供の遊びなのですけれど。
それを学院内でやるのか？
ええ、参加者全員で探すんです。楽しそうでしょ？
俺は見ているだけにするよ。
The campus was as quiet as ever. It seemed there were fewer students than usual. That must have meant participation wasn't mandatory.
おや、時坂さんではありませんか。
あ、教頭先生、どうもお邪魔しています。
I exchanged pleasantries with Saiki after he emerged from the staff room.
いえいえ、構いませんよ。ぜひ楽しんでいってください。
Saiki smiled meekly, then headed down the hallway.
兄さん、美術室で準備をしますから参りま。
As it turned out, we weren't the first ones there.
先生だ。やあ、時坂先生。
なんだ、お前たちもいたのか。
先生がいるより珍しくないよ。
残念ながら瞳子は休みだけれどね。
水原さんが？
体調不良らしいよ。季節の変わり目だからね。私も気をつけないと。
そうだな。
Though she seemed fine for today.
分かっているさ。
Toko smiled and nodded before rising from her chair.
全員揃ったことだし、準備を始めようか。
そうですね。兄さんはどうしますか？
どうするとは？
どなたかを手伝ってもいいし、待っていてもらっても構いませんよ。
Oh. I like that we get an option. Okay, so we can help Yukari, Toko, Tojiko, or we could wait in the infirmary, where I imagine we'll probably have an interaction with Nene. This, oh man, fuck this. I was not ready for this. I would want to wait in the infirmary just because Nene possibly is there. I'm not gonna do that though. I'm not gonna bother with Tojiko. I mean, I want to help Yukari just because I like Yukari as a character, but I think obviously we're gonna have to go with Toko here, right? I couldn't slack off when everyone else was working.
瞳子は何をするんだ？
私はそこの卵を教室まで運ぶつもりだよ。
そのくらい手伝ってやるよ。お前に無理はさせられないからな。
じゃあ頼んでもいいかな。
ああ、任せておけよ。
I pushed a cart loaded with multicolored eggs down the hallway. The students shot me funny looks, but none of them ever bothered saying anything to me as per usual. The hallways were decorated fairly modestly. I saw a cart full of similar crates approaching me from the opposite end. It seemed everyone was working hard. Our two carts crossed paths in the center of the hallway. The other one was loaded with ordinary eggs. Those were probably for everyone to eat. I brought the eggs into the designated classroom. There, that should do it. However, I found a crowd forming down the hallway when I went back out. A ruckus at Obergirls Academy surely wasn't something you saw every day. I could only imagine something big had happened. Further complicating matters was the sight of a student slumped in the middle of the hallway.
何があったんだ？
Oh? I nudged my way through the crowd.
なんだこれは。
Eggs, broken and intact, were littered across the floor. However, what leaked out of their cracked shells wasn't yolk, but meat. Tojiko stood completely rooted to the spot next to them.
先生。
下がっていろ、綴り子。
The first order of business was to figure out what had happened. Broken eggshells and chunks of meat were scattered all across the floor.
帰りかけの日な。
The chunks of meat were clearly too big for that. They must have been rotten, for they exuded a foul odor that permeated the air. Furthermore, there wasn't much blood. As I looked around, I spotted something in the chunks of meat.
綴り子、職員室へ行って教頭先生に警察を呼ぶように伝えてくれ。
Suzuriko snapped out of her daze and trudged down the stairs.
誰がこんな悪趣味なことを。
I'm gonna take a wild guess and say it's human meat. I stared at the obviously human finger I'd found amidst a sea of flesh. Yep, there it is. A few seconds later, I picked up one of the unbroken eggs using my handkerchief. It felt rather heavy. I didn't remember exactly how much a normal egg weighed, but I knew this was nowhere near that. Don't tell me there are more in here. I studied the egg's surface, but it looked like any ordinary egg. Saiki came sprinting up the stairs.
時坂先生、これは一体。
警察に連絡はしましたか？
ええ、すぐに来てくださるようです。
わかりました。まずは学生を全員教室へ入れてください。
そうですね。
The students filed into the classrooms on Saiki's orders. Not even they could hide the unrest they felt upon witnessing such horrors. The air vibrated with the bizarrely hushed din of voices, speaking volumes of the ordinarily impassive students' pandemonium.
時坂さん、
赤崎先生、あなたもこれは見ない方がいい。
Nene was staring at the floor, a look of terror in her eyes. She must have heard the ruckus and come up to take a look.
今、よそみやさんが知らせてくれたのよ。これは一体。
おそらく人の体の一部だと思われます。信じられないことに。
Damn, how the fuck
卵
do
の
you
中に
stuff?
詰められてい
How
た
do
よ
you
うです。
stuff whole fingers into eggs? I said that loud enough so Saiki would hear as well.
なぜこんなことが。
わかりません。
でも、あの事件はもう終わったはずでは。
ええ、そうでしょう。学内にだって行方不明になっている学生などいませんよね。
今日休んでいる学生はいますが、一応確認してみます。
ええ、お願いします。
Come to think of it, Toko wasn't present either. Not that I thought this was her, but you never knew.
教頭先生、この卵を納入した業者はわかりますね。警察が来た後で仕入れ先なども聞かれるでしょうから、納品書などを揃えておいてください。
Something tells me this might be connected to the dismemberment case from Uzomi's end.
わかりました。
Saiki and Nene departed down the hallway. Thus, I was left all alone in this bizarre hellscape. The stench of decay hung in the air like mist. The chunks of meat didn't look all that fresh. They'd been rotting for several days at least. I saw Toko and Ueno a mere 2 days ago, and this definitely wasn't her. Suddenly, I recalled the newspaper article from a few days prior. Scraps of flesh believed human in origin found scattered in various locations. And then there was what Uzomi had told me just yesterday.
またバラバラか。
Sticking around wasn't doing my sanity any favors. And so I decided to get some rest and let the police handle this. We're gonna go ahead and stop it there. I know, it's only an hour episode this time, but we're gonna go ahead and stop. Actually, I do want to try one thing though. I want to go back and I want to load this save and help Tojiko instead to see if anything different happens. I figured I'd better help out since I was there, carp diem and all that.
トジコは何をするんだ？
私は卵を運ぶんだよ。
卵？あ、前に色を塗ったやつか。
今日みんなで食べるゆで卵だよ。イースターエッグは食べない方がいいと思うな。
まあ、作ってから時間が経っているからな。
そういうこと。それじゃあ行こっか。
Tojiko and I went to get the eggs from the science lab on the second
この
floor.
卵でいいのか？
多分ね。
We loaded the egg-filled crates into a cart.
これを教室まで運べばいいんだよ。
まあ、普通に押していけばいいだけか。
I got behind the cart and pushed it. Though they were just regular old eggs, they didn't change the fact that they weighed a ton when put together.
トジコ、そっちを押さえていてくれ。
We started carefully making our way down the hallway to keep them steady.
しかし、復活祭というのは卵尽くしなんだな。
卵とウサギはイースターの象徴でもあるからね。豊穣のシンボルなんだよ。
トジコは詳しいんだな。
そりゃあ小説家ですから。
Tojiko proudly pounded her chest.
おい、手を離さないでくれよ。
大丈夫でしょこのくらい。
One of the crates started tipping after Tojiko stopped holding it up.
危ない！
I instantly dragged Tojiko to safety. However, I was too late to stop the crate of eggs from falling.
大丈夫か？
でも卵が。
And then boom, that
な
again.
んだ？
Yep.
これは。
Alright, I just wanted to see. So, I hate to do it to you guys because I know that this has been 2 episodes so far of just basically filler. And again, I apologize for this only being what has it been about an hour, just a little over. I'm sorry about that. Again, I've said this. I'm gonna keep saying it, but I've just got other stuff that I have to do. So I'm unfortunately a lot more constricted on time now than I was previously. But obviously, in this next episode, we're gonna get back into the swing of things because it's clear now that we're gonna have to go ahead and step back into our detective shoes and start working this case again. Because obviously, even though we've got Kusaka, things aren't over. Also, I would like to throw another note out there. It's awfully suspicious that what was the fucking guy's name? The author of the Egg of Nianus happened to randomly, uncharacteristically show up and somehow uncharacteristically, chanceably run into us the second before all hell breaks loose. Very, very convenient. But that's just speculation on my part. We'll find out more in the next episode. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like on it and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos of this series on my channel, then I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you'll be notified when a new one of those videos comes out. Anyways, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!